Welcome to the Oh Brother Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith.
Deja vu.
All over again. Yeah.
Having deja vu, Dan.
So it's January 14th, 2022. Welcome to the Oh Brother Podcast. You know, the Oh Brother Podcast is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. There's so much to talk about before we get into the review of the movie, which is The Tender Bar starring Ben Affleck on Prime. So this is about what, the third take of this episode? Fourth take?
Because my phone went off first.
The phone went off. We had, unexpected guest stars that were popping in. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't say that this episode, we've got a new production assistant that's starting out with us. So good luck, Kelley. So I want to give a quick shout out to Kelley Hammond, who's going to be working with us as our production assistant. You know, Emily wasn't cutting the mustard. Let's be honest. We had to kick her to the curb. You know,
had to kick her to the curb. You know, you got to, in this business, it's cutthroat.
It's cutthroat. Yeah.
And she was bringing those numbers down. We had to say thanks, but no thanks.
I mean, it's not, we had expected Mulan to be at least 10,000 by now. And, we've only got 7,300 views. Like, come on. That's
we can't
stuff.
This is Oh Brother. This is Oh Brother.
Yeah. Meanwhile, she's working on the next, The Weeknd album video shoot or something. I don't know. I'm trying to get a hip reference in for the kids. So anyways, we're excited to work with Kelley, see what he's going to bring to the show this season. And he's going to have his work cut out for him in this first episode.
Really got off to
Listen closely, Kelley, for all the pop, snaps, and buzzes. Before we forget, for those of you that are not currently following us, make sure that you do. And the easiest way to find all things Oh Brother is to go out to our official website, which is OHB as in brother podcast.com. That's
Wait for it.
OHBpodcast.com. Wait for it, folks. Oh Brother season 3. Oh, look at
season 3.
Is mine? See, mine has a mirror effect. Look at that. And yours, thank God yours is correct. Kelley might have to bring back in the mishap meter, mishap counter.
Bing.
Now, let me say, so you go out to our official website and get all access to all things Oh Brother out there. And one thing I want to mention, I want to really give a shout out and say thanks to all of those listeners who have also gone out and subscribed to our YouTube channel. We've seen an increase out there. We're very appreciative of that, trying to get our base up out there. So subscribe, doesn't cost you a thing. Give us a thumbs up. Also doesn't cost you a thing. You know what is costing quite a bit of money is me trying to relocate the Oh Brother Studios.
Yeah.
I think
we're going to see that by February.
Yeah, by February. And by then you might also see our Patreon page or possibly a GoFundMe page because I'm going to need some money. But yeah, there's a lot of happenings going on. But
to bring up last year's finale, that was fantastic.
Yeah, that interview with Cindy Busby was great.
Yeah, that was excellent. And then for people who stayed to the end, got the surprise guest. And I didn't know she was coming. Oprah comes in.
Right.
The Oprah with the big O.
Well, and
I got a picture because I couldn't believe it, dude. She gives away a Cadillac.
Yeah, and a vaccination.
Yeah, right.
You get a vaccine and you get a vaccine.
And I look at this was unbelievable. A new Cadillac, right?
Yeah.
Check it out. Now
it's the stupidest thing
I've
ever
seen. Picture. Unfortunately, Dan had an idea. And he said, "Hey, put the 3D goggles on. It'll look funny."
What?
So this picture was actually taken just before this gentleman drove into a tree.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
That is ridiculous. Hey, what's the history of those 3D glasses that you got?
This is from Friday the 13th.
Wow. Oh,
Part 3.
It came in the disc with the box set. Yeah.
Yeah. If you bought the box set, you got, because the third movie was in 3D. I remember seeing it in the theater, they do the obvious gags, the arrow coming right at you and stuff like
Yes,
that. You're like,
that's
"Ooh,"
right.
yeah. And they work about as good as they worked back then
I
in the
think the last
70s.
3D movie, well, no, that's not true. I saw like The Last Jedi in 3D or something.
Did you
I was,
in the theater?
yeah, Jaws 3D, I think was the first one I saw like back in the day.
Yeah, that was late 70s,
And
I
that was the
think, maybe
early
80s.
technology back then.
Yeah,
It's like,
maybe
oof.
80s.
Yeah.
Well, think 10 years prior when we and you
Yeah.
never got to watch a movie in Sense-Around.
No.
Earthquake was in Sense-Around, and they had these big, gigantic, I mean, the size of this room, things that they put in the back of the theater. And when the earthquake started, these things would start to just shake.
Right. Well, now, I mean, you
So
got those luxury theaters that literally have the seats that, well, we did that when we saw Pacific Rim when I
oh yeah,
visited, right?
yeah, we went to the IMAX.
Yeah, and it
It's a
had the
10
motion in the
story,
seats. And,
right? A 10-story IMAX in 4K
mhm,
with Dolby Atlas. It was
right.
it was voted like the top 5 theater in the country. Has not been open since the pandemic.
Yeah,
Still not open.
it's a weird, that's a whole weird setup. It's like built within a furniture store. It's really
Yeah,
strange,
it's bizarre,
but the
but it
theater is
is
great. A
the
humongous theater.
and the sound,
Yeah.
which goes
Yeah.
right through you.
I mean,
Goes
I
right
dare to
through you.
say that screen is almost too big, quite frankly.
Yeah.
All right, so should we get into the film?
Yeah, let's get
This
into this film we did,
Okay,
which,
so we
like as you mentioned, the
this just
Tender
came out.
Bar.
Yeah, it just came out on Prime, The Tender Bar. So we got Ben Affleck, Ty Sheridan. I think I may not have her name correct, Lily Rabe. Let me just pull this up real quick. I want to give proper credit to the cast here because you were mentioned. Okay, so you mentioned Daniel Ranieri. I think
That's that I had a tough
he
time with
plays
his last name.
the young main character Jr.
Right. One of the letters in his name is silent.
Oh,
So
okay, okay. And then you have, some other players in it, like Christopher Lloyd from back. Well, speaking of which, you got the Back to the Future poster behind you,
that's
actually, in
right.
your studio.
He was in it.
Um, so do you want to give a synopsis of it first, like we
Yeah.
typically do, and then we can jump into like what our take is
Really
on it?
quick, really
Yeah.
quick synopsis. It's a coming of age story, basically.
Mhm.
And the young kid, you said his name, Daniel
Ranieri.
Ranieri, I think it is.
Yeah.
And he carried a good chunk of this film on his back.
Hmm.
And he couldn't have been more than what, 12?
Yeah.
Um, it's basically the story of him growing up, and it's a true story based on an actual person. And his name's JR.
Right.
He goes by JR because he's a junior, but he doesn't want to be known. His father's a deadbeat dad,
Hmm.
the whole thing. And we don't even know his name in the movie. He's called The Voice.
He's a radio DJ.
Yeah. So he sneaks at times to listen to his father on the radio. That's how he wants to connect with him. Meanwhile, Ben Affleck plays his uncle
Right.
and is really giving him the tips of, what it is to grow up. And then, Ben Affleck works at this bar, hence the title Tender Bar, where all the patrons,
The name of the bar is The Dickens.
the Dickens, after Charles Dickens,
Right.
and the patrons of the bar basically raise this kid
Hmm.
along with Ben Affleck and, of course, his mother.
Hmm.
So that's basically the lead into the story. And it kind of follows him through the life of basically not only the patrons, but his mother and Ben Affleck, especially Ben Affleck.
Yeah, and this is another this is one of those films where it's got the narration throughout the film,
Yeah.
right? So which is Ron Livingston, who I believe wasn't he in Office Space?
Yes, he was.
Right. So you got Ron Livingston doing the voiceover narration of the character JR.
I'm literally shaking down right now.
Okay.
It's so cold in here.
Oh, is it because you're
I'm
cold?
literally
Yeah.
shaking.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Bear, go get a quilt or something.
No, I'm good.
The
I know.
closet.
Mother said, why don't you put on a robe?
Right.
And I said, "What, I'm going to be like
Go
Johnny
get,
LaRue?"
go get your
Another
smoking jacket out of the closet.
there's Kelly's first reference, Johnny LaRue from Second City Television.
Yeah. Can you pull it
In his
out?
robe. Can he pull that one up?
All right. That's good.
Because
We, we,
you know,
we told them to be at the ready for all of these
that's right. That's
deep
John
cuts that we
Candy,
have.
by the way. John Candy's
Uh,
Johnny LaRue.
the great John
So,
Candy.
yep.
So you want to give your take on it? What was your,
Well, why don't you, I gave this, the intro.
I-
Why don't you just get going?
okay, we failed to say, shockingly, who directed this film, George Clooney.
Right.
Not his
Which
first outing as a director. Of
no,
course.
and he also directed Ben Affleck or produced with Ben Affleck before in Argo.
Yeah, right.
And won
right.
an Academy Award.
That's
both of
right.
them.
That's right. Which, yeah, wasn't it Best Picture because Affleck did not win Best Director for that.
No.
That was a
No.
whole.
I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know if
they
there's a
won
controversy,
an award.
but there's a whole, yeah. So George Clooney directs it. I guess they should have called this movie The Tinder Box because this thing to me went up in flames like real fast.
Really?
I mean, yeah, I had so much to say about this film. I didn't have any expectations either way because, this was another one. We were sort of back and forth on some other films and, there's some that we want to review that are not quite out in the theater yet and whatever. So we settle on The Tender Bar. I've liked Ben Affleck for most of his career, been a pretty good admirer of his work. Did you want to interject something?
Well, I was just going to say this. We settled on this because the most recent, basically. We didn't really want to dip back to 2021. We wanted something that just came out. This came out on the 7th. Technically, it was released in the theater in December.
Right.
But it had a very small release.
Yeah, we're calling it a 2022
Yeah.
release. But to me, this is a film. We talked about this with some of our other reviews, but I just feel like this was another film, just like the character JR, who has an identity crisis. This film had an identity crisis. It didn't know what it wanted to be, what the focus of it was. Was it about, like, there were so many relationships at play here, and they never paid off any of them because they had to. It was almost like, the Eternals. There was just too many balls in the air to really have a satisfying conclusion about any of them. And for a movie that there were so many moments where, again, the tender in the name, right? And, this tenderness, the heart, the emotion, every obvious scene where that should have come across, it just flatlined for me. I was really bummed out at that. I mean, there's a scene where this doesn't really give anything away. So it's not a spoiler alert, I wouldn't say, but Christopher Lloyd, who we mentioned, from Back to the Future, he plays the grandfather, JR's grandfather. And a lot of them are shacking up at his house. And what you discover through the film, I think you would agree, is that he went to Dartmouth, right? I don't know if he taught there or something, but he went to Dartmouth or whatever. So this is a fairly educated guy,
Right.
but he looks like, a vagrant, at this point in his life. Anyways, he goes to an event with the young boy at one point, and there's
he fills in. It was
he
like
fills in for his dad,
a father
son
breakfast,
right at the school. And so there's this very brief exchange between Christopher Lloyd and his wife in the film, who actually sadly had just died back in September.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was very sad.
That's awful.
Yeah.
She's young.
Well, let's see. No, I'm talking about the grandmother. I think you're thinking of the mom, Lily Rabe, right? Are you talking about
No, I'm thinking of the
Sandra
grandmother.
James? Yeah, Sandra James.
Yeah, she was in her 80s.
Yeah.
80, 81.
So anyways, there's this brief exchange between the two of them. And it clearly should have like pulled at the heartstrings. And it was just so, it didn't have anything for me. So that was one problem I had with it. Also, we talked a lot about the time, the length of movies these days, right? You can't get a film that's under 210, 215,
Right. Right.
And here's a film that's just over an hour and a half, like an hour and 40 minutes or something like that, I think, right? Somewhere in there, just shy of 2 hours.
Yeah.
And but it was one where I'm watching the time and I'm going, how are they going to resolve all of this in 10 minutes? And they don't. They really don't. It kind of goes nowhere for me. So those are my first main criticism of the film. I've got others, but
Okay.
I'll lobby it back over to you.
Yeah, I'm going the other way, not strongly, but I'm going the other way with this. I felt like, first of all, it was a stellar cast. I thought the acting across the board was really good. Especially Ben Affleck was really good in it. Now he plays the most educated person really in the movie.
Yeah,
And
which I
he's
also had a
basically,
problem with.
yeah, he's basically self-educated. I know people like him in the world that are just book hounds. And, you think of Abraham Lincoln, who self-taught himself law. And he was that kind of figure where he had read every book, and the bar was full of books, and he would constantly pass on his knowledge to the young nephew
Yeah.
and say, read this book. Read this book, it'll teach you about this.
Right.
I bought that. I thought that was sincere.
I didn't. I mean, there's a point where he's, demonstrating some of that intellect that he clearly has in it, but it just doesn't, it never reconciled itself with him just like, slinging drinks at a bar. It just didn't line
Well,
up.
I think that's kind of the sadness in his life, is the fact that, one of the main themes in this movie is the mother wants the young boy to go to Yale from the time
or
he
Harvard,
can,
or
or
Harvard,
Harvard,
right.
or
Harvard or Yale.
that was something we probably both had a problem with, is Ben Affleck went to Boston and not to Long Island, where he was supposed to be.
It wasn't as bad as it could have been, but yeah, every now and then he slipped into the Good Will Hunting Ben Affleck.
Right. He was more Boston than,
because it is very
Long
different.
Island.
It is very different. Yeah.
So there was an accent issue in the film, not just him, other people.
Yeah. I thought he seemed to lower the tone of his voice a little bit, though, which I think took the edge off of that for me a little bit. I gave him a little bit of a pass for that, but yeah, you're right. It was definitely more New England than New York.
It felt New England, and then they would say, "Yeah, here in Long Island," and I was like, "Oh."
Yeah.
But I felt like it's about life lessons learned while you're growing up. And again, the mother's her only real thing wasn't for herself, it was for her son. She lived for her son and wanted him to go and get this great education, and that would take him through life without any issues at all.
Right.
And the two of us know that isn't true.
Right.
At all.
Yeah. And look, the premise, I'm not arguing with the premise. The premise is good. It was the execution that just, it wasn't great. I mean, if you read the summary, if you pull it up on Prime and you read the summary, synopsis, whatever,
of JR.
Yeah. It's like,
and I forget his name. I forget his last name now.
Yeah, he's an
JR
aspiring
something.
writer.
Yes.
And he basically hangs out at his uncle's bar.
Right.
And he gets inspired to write, based on characters that evolved from his experience in the bar. I thought, oh, that's pretty, that should be pretty fascinating. And it really wasn't. None of them were interesting. You get the guy that had a bit part in The Sopranos at one point. He like, that wasn't a great, supporting role, I didn't think.
No.
Benny. I think he played Benny in The Sopranos.
Benny Blanco from the Bronx.
Benny Blanco. Yeah. So, again, it was just, it had no pulse for me. And then I struggle when the young actor isn't a little bit more comparable to the adult version of that character. This Daniel and Ty just couldn't look any different. Like,
Yeah.
The kid looks more like you than he does Ty Sheridan.
It is that, you can make that argument about most movies where they have a young kid and then an older
But this
version.
seems so different. It's like, oh, he grew up and got facial reconstruction surgery. Okay. With the money that he got off his memoirs. I don't know.
Of course, with me, a lot of the emotional stuff was a swing and a miss. I couldn't,
Yeah.
That one scene you talked about is probably the most blatant pull on your heartstrings as you'll see in the movie.
I don't think
where it's basically that's what it's there for.
I mean,
to make you cry.
You thought, Tender Mercies was a comedy. So
terms of endearment.
Terms of endearment.
I was howling through
rip roaring time there.
But I think there was some. I agree with you. The ending.
Okay, Ben Affleck uses the term Dubaiety. Come on.
Right.
Come on. Well, he's got Dubaiety about his identity.
Right.
Come on.
When he's talking to a shrink.
Correct.
Trying to basically impress the shrink.
Right. And that just didn't work for me.
Yeah.
And JR, the younger JR, the Ron Livingston voiceover basically explains, good luck going toe to toe. Like, he may look like some blue collar guy, but he could go toe to toe with anybody, including whatever you call them, a dime store psychiatrist or something.
Right.
But it just didn't work.
Yeah. No, there's
it's a movie
definitely problems
for the audience listening. This is a movie where they're going to want you to invest in the story, in the heart of all these characters, and I'm sorry, you're just going to come out unfulfilled at the end of it. It comes up shallow. And the narration, it's like, is this the Wonder Years? Like, it just the narration was it was odd to me. It seemed very I'm not sure the word I'm looking for. The description, it just seemed very cheesy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just didn't like it.
I really didn't have a problem with it. I am, as I said, I'm going the other way, but not by much.
Right.
There's so many things unresolved, and it's supposed to be about these relationships. And it should have gotten more into the relationship.
And they could have if they only had 3 maybe and not 10 like the Eternals.
Right. Like, what was the deal?
And what was the motivation for his father even coming? Like, you don't even get the payoff of why does his father even want to come into his life at all?
Right. He shows up randomly.
You never learn what his motivation was for that.
No. He shows up randomly throughout the film and, gives him money to give to his mother. That's about it.
Right.
And like I said, we don't even know his name. And the only reason I know that they called him the voice was because I had the subtitles on.
Oh, yeah.
And every time he spoke, it said the voice and then whatever he was saying.
Right.
But I think there was some nuggets in there that you could latch on to that he did a good job at. Like, for me, I thought Clooney did a really good job with the, whoever he worked with set design, the music. I mean, right from the get-go, I forget the opening song. Riding on the wheel.
Easy
Down.
with the copyright.
Yeah. Well, but
we don't want to get a strike.
You just heard that. No chance of a copyright strike.
I know exactly what the song is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, you can say the name of it.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's move on. Well, no, but I'm glad you mentioned the music because that was another problem I had.
Really?
Yeah, it was an overuse of the music. It was almost like Forrest Gump. Every 2 seconds they were introducing another classic song from the late 70s and early 80s. It's like, okay.
But
now it's how many Jackson Browne songs do you need? How many? I mean, come on.
He's the only one he overused.
It overshadowed. See, if they had removed the music from a couple of those scenes, they would have played more dramatically. But that music just killed it. It
I
killed
don't
it.
think so.
Yeah, it killed
You
it.
know, having grown up in that era, and in fact,
It killed it,
the
folks.
character was exactly a year younger than
No, I'm not
me.
saying the music wasn't fitting of the time. I'm just
Right.
saying it was overused. It was too much. I mean, the soundtrack's
don't
probably a
think
double
so.
CD or something. I mean, it was
Yeah, I don't
there was
think
so
so.
many.
I
Yeah, it
definitely
was
don't
terrible.
agree with that one.
It's terrible.
The look of it, this looked typical 70s, early 70s.
Yes. Now I'll give you that. So here's some of the pros. Yeah, I thought Clooney did a nice job of the directing. The cinematography was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the lighting and the different
Yeah.
sequences were. I mean, there was all kinds of things going on.
And I think a
very
lot of it was natural lighting. You know, there was obviously some boosts here and there, but there
and
was a lot of natural lighting.
some soft lit scenes that were really nice. And
I like the sequences when the kids are passing each other, you know, coming in, we're leaving. You know what I
Where's that?
mean? Because in this house with Christopher Lloyd, you know, there was constantly kids coming and going.
Right.
You know, okay, these cousins are moving in while these cousins are moving out.
Yeah.
This was kind of the flop house that everybody, you know, to his daughter, that meant failure.
Yes.
I'm back home.
Right.
You know, how many people haven't gone through that in their life where you go out, I'm gonna take the world by the thing and wrap it around and put it under my arm.
Rest in peace, Chris Farley.
and you know, how many people go out and then they wind up back in their old bedroom where everything all of a sudden seems bigger than it was.
Exactly.
You know,
We've all done that.
yeah. So you know, to me, I thought he caught some of that really, really well.
Yeah.
Overall, yeah, take 20 minutes out. I'm not going to be unhappy. It got to a point where I was like, okay.
Yeah, but you got to put in another 20 minutes or you got a 60-minute film.
Yeah. And there was the girlfriend situation that
again
sort of made no sense.
It made no sense in the end.
Yeah.
It made no sense. And
I mean, I thought
Brianna Middleton, just to give her some props, who played that character you're talking about, was a classmate of his at Yale,
right?
That he had a
crush
thing
on.
for. Yeah. And you know, she didn't reciprocate. Let's just say that.
Well, she got something out of it, but
yeah, she was,
she was basically using him throughout the film. And I thought there was going to be some kind of lesson about it. You know, certainly there's a lesson to be learned there, but he didn't ever taught it. You know what I mean? He was like, here's a lesson about life, but I'm not going to really show you the ending and teach you what it means.
That's what the whole movie is to me, what you just said.
Yeah.
That's the whole movie right there.
I can see that argument.
I had to watch it again just to figure out what stashes were, which is just some money you tuck away in your wallet deep in one of those pockets that you don't touch. You leave it there for a rainy day, you know.
Right.
It's part of the male science that Ben Affleck schooled him on.
Correct.
And, you know, I went into this really wanting it to have all of that heart and tenderness because, again, from reading the synopsis, I thought, I was personally relating to a lot of this because I had a very close relationship with our Uncle George. And I was sort of looking for some of those similarities in their relationship, you know, Ben and Daniel's characters. And
and I
just
didn't
never
have
got
that.
there.
I didn't have that relationship.
Right. With anyone.
With anyone. I didn't really. I mean, I will admit that, except for you.
Right.
And you were more like my kid than you were my brother.
Right.
That's how different we were in age.
Yeah.
So
you're late on the child payment,
the child support.
Child support.
But you know, I thought the acting and, you know, given the set, given some of I like the music. The music was a hit for me. I thought there was enough good to tilt over. And I'm talking, when I say good, I'm talking like, if this is 100, I would have given this about a 76 or 78.
I mean, I would want people to see it because I'd be curious to see what their response is to it. And it's on Prime. So if you have Prime, you know, it's not costing you a dime.
I hate to turn people away from it because I think there's enough good
but
to outweigh the bad.
I just, you know, go watch Ben Affleck in Good Will Hunting. That's a much better performance from him dramatically.
Well, that's a much better movie, but
yeah, it is.
But
and this actually had some elements that were similar to that. I feel like the use of music, the relationship with the girl, and then at the end he ends up buying
right.
There was just some common themes there.
I think, to be honest with you, the biggest problem was the memoir isn't that interesting.
Neither is the movie, folks. I mean, there you go.
The story of this guy's life is just kind of meh.
Like, yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
There again is my review of this.
Film, like, folks. They shouldn't have. Yeah. They really, I'm sure you and I could have penciled out a better memoir that would have been more entertaining.
For sure. And it would have crossed all genres. It would have been a horror movie, a comedy, a drama,
a little of everything in
maybe
there.
Even a Western at times. And
I think that's what it should have been. And it just didn't get there.
It didn't get there. No, it didn't get there. Yeah, I just
but I hate to call it bad. I think there was enough good to watch it.
I suppose I want to
especially right now, if you're looking for something new.
Yeah.
And, this is a pretty good take.
I want to be mindful of calling something bad. Here we are, like, reviewing these works of art, if you will, dare I say. And, it's all opinion based at the end of the day. You always say that. Look, if you, don't go by what I say,
right.
Watch it for yourself and decide.
Right.
So if you do decide to go out and watch The Tender Bar on Prime, hit us up on Instagram at OHB Podcasts and drop us some comments and let us know what you think. I'd be curious to see if this was
definitely on YouTube. Check out
go
Kelley's
out to our
premiere.
YouTube. That's right. This will be Kelley Hammond's big premiere.
He pulls off his first episode.
That's right. And
he's already given him a lot to work with.
Well, I think there's a fair amount of material here that he can work with. He splice and dice and do all that stuff.
If we went completely unedited, there would have been a lot of stuff in those first few
there would. Yeah, he's got some things to work with. We'll see what he can bring. But yeah, we're happy to have Kelley with us again. He's going to be working with us over the course of this season, and again, it's good to be back after a very, very short break.
Yeah, seemed long to me.
I need about 3 more months. What you got?
And maybe the wonderful Cadillac.
Yeah, now I don't want to commit that we're giving away any Cadillacs here.
No, that was an Oprah thing, and folks, don't drive with 3D glasses.
No,
please don't do that.
You'll end up crashing into a tree for sure.
Yeah.
Which, I won't say it'd be pretty harsh criticism of the film, but we'll leave it there. So The Tender Bar on Prime Video, starring Ben Affleck, Ty Sheridan, Lily Rabe we're going with, and Daniel Ranieri. We might have that wrong, and directed by George Clooney. So you got a split decision here on Oh Brother for the first episode of season 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And not a knockdown. I'm not gonna, stand up and say, I'm not gonna pick a fight over this one.
Yeah, but you're recommending it.
Yeah,
I'm not necessarily, but we'll see what the listeners think. So again, thanks to all of you that have gone out and subscribed to the YouTube channel. We really appreciate that. We're going to keep bringing you content out there. We'll get some other things in the works. We're toying around with some other ideas, and we'll see what comes of that. But again, for those of you not currently following us, make sure you go out to our official website, which is ohbpodcast.com. And once again, Mike, turn your mug around, because we are now officially into Oh Brother season 3. Yep. Well, that's going to do it for another. We did survive.
We survived season 2.
Yeah, just like I survived.
Unfortunately, the gentleman with the Cadillac didn't. But
yeah, that poor stick figure.
I hope Oprah had insurance on that car.
I'm pretty sure she's got it covered.
Sweet. Yeah, she probably could handle it.
Well, that's going to do it for another episode of the Oh Brother podcast. I've been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith. And we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.